Well, thank you, Lee. I appreciate that introduction. I think that for 83, I look pretty good. For 33, maybe not so much. When we first came to spiritualism, and I think most of you here have been with spiritualism for a while and have a little bit of an understanding of spiritualism. When we first came to spiritualism, it wasn't long before we found one of what I believe is the most powerful declarations in our Declaration of Principle, that of personal responsibility. And for me personally, when I first began to study spiritualism and I learned about personal responsibility, it was kind of pretty scary. Because it goes so much deeper than just being personally responsible to pay the rent or the mortgage or the electric bill and get the oil changed on your car regularly. It's not so much about that as it is about our inner personal responsibility. Our eyes, as in this physical world, are wonderful assets. They're also a little bit limiting. They're a little bit camouflaging. And when I say that, what I mean is that we tend to look outward and think that that's what's going on out there that's affecting our lives. And we look at it with our eyes as life happens, rather than looking within. When in fact, really the way to enact change is not by focusing on trying to affect what's out there, but rather focusing on how to affect what's going on out there by looking within. That's where it all begins. And that's where our greatest personal responsibility lies. It lies from within us. If we want to change what's going on out there, we change what's going on in here. How do we do that? And why should we do that? Well, I know that a lot of you have heard that we need to gain things. We need to gain spirituality. We need to gain. We need to learn. We need to have knowledge. We need to gain. And I say to you that you have everything within you right now. You are at your core. The truth of the matter is, at your very, very deepest core of being, of your being, who you are is little gods. That's who you are. Not human beings trying to muddle their way through life. Now what's happened to us? Why don't we see that? Why don't we know that? Why don't we live that? Because that is really the truth. And I'll tell you why I'm calling it the truth. There's a study, there's not a study, there are many studies going on right now worldwide about quantum realities. And what they're finding, this is on a scientific level now, and I'm not going to go into all the ramifications of it because it's not a workshop, it's a sermon, and we don't have time. But suffice it to say that what we're learning with this quantum understanding is that there are actually parts of the brain that are affected by programs that have been instilled within us, and that our brains connect with a certain combination of wiring, and those pins keep firing the same way over and over and over and over again until such time, if ever, that that wiring gets moved. Instead of firing like this, it now fires in a different manner. Think of it in terms of like a record player, you know, and a needle, right? That needle is in that groove and it goes around and around and around and around. Well, what happens when we decide that we want to change that groove? We take that needle and we put it on the high side of the hump, right? And it's real easy for that needle to slip back into the groove again. But what happens is if we continually work at holding that needle, and I think you understand the correlation, right? The thought. If you continually work at holding that needle on that high side and you force it, you consciously make an effort for that needle to go around on that point, there, then what happens? Eventually, that needle will make a new groove, right? Is it possible? You bet. One drop of water on a rock, over and over and over again in the same place. What happens? Puts a hole right in the rock, doesn't it? Okay. So, what's kept us from understanding who we are, the truth of who we are? I think some of you have heard about, the equation has been we have coverings like the layers of an onion, right? And it's not a matter of adding to that. We tend to go about it in a backward fashion by turning our eyeballs out instead of looking within. And we think that we have to gain stuff when in fact we have to peel the stuff off. Where does that stuff come from? It comes from societal influences, comes from, and again, this is something that's been scientifically proven, our very DNA, which is being looked at very hard by the scientific community with respect to our emotional bodies. Guess what they found out? And what we're learning about now on a quantum level. You know where your emotional body is? Where it's stored? I thought it was in my head. Your emotional body is in your physical body. That's where it is. That's where your emotions are stored, is within your physical body. And again, this is all quantum stuff that's being discovered and worked on, and as it's being discovered and worked on, there are also people that are stepping up and teaching how to alleviate some of those aches and pains that we store in our emotional bodies, that we find in our physical bodies. It's interesting stuff. do all this work, though? I mean, it sounds like a lot of work to go inside and look at all the things that, those layers that may not be serving you well, things that are keeping you from understanding who you truly are, and what's the benefit of it? You know, why go to the trouble? Well, I want to read you something from a guy by the name of H. Gordon Burroughs, who wrote a book back in 1926 called Becoming a Spiritualist. And in this statement that he makes, he talks about religion, spiritualism being the religion of self-culture. And he gives to us the why of why we need to do our inner work. So he addresses traits associated with living in alignment with our true selves, our core. And now I'm quoting, through the teachings of spiritualism, the seeker realizes that to find God, or good, he must constantly look within. Constantly look within. As a sidebar, I'm going to say to you that you can't fix what you don't acknowledge. So the first thing is identifying it, right? And saying, geez, I'm probably more ego-driven than I care to be. My ego's out of control. I'm jealous, I'm insecure, I'm whatever it is. First you have to acknowledge it before you can fix it. Okay? And that's hard, it's not easy. The seeker realizes that to find God or good, he must constantly look within. When God is found there, man will see the manifestation of infinite intelligence everywhere. When man becomes free from the limitations of religious prejudice and past dogmas and begins to grow, he encounters many obstacles. It's not going to be a smooth trip. It's a tough journey. But if he has sought carefully to find the truth, he recognizes that jealousy, hatred, envy, and greed are but manifestations of individual selfishness and ignorance, I might add. That's not his quote, but mine. And that they must be cast out before one can go far on the path. They must be cast out before one can go far on the path. If you want to become spiritually adept, this is what you got to do. You got to do the work. And the work isn't out there. It's here. That's the why. Why do the work? Because that's how you become spiritually adept. And that's how you gain happiness. That's what that seventh principle is all about. That we make our own happiness or unhappiness. Okay? Burroughs talks about hatred, envy, greed, jealousy. We kind of know those things. Today we face, on top of those issues, so many more issues in this world. And that tells me that there's more separation there are more layers and layers upon layers and layers, and that people aren't coming to the realization of what it takes, the work that it takes, and what needs to happen to rectify the situation. And I gotta tell you, I'm so humbled and proud to be standing here with you guys, because each one of you guys, and that's a term, you know, guys and gals, but it's a New York thing. You're all guys. Each one of you is committed to spirituality, and that, yeah, I'm so proud to be with like-minded people. I'm so proud to be with you. Thank you. Thank you so much. So now we know the why. But what about how? How do we do this? You know, it's easy to say, oh, well, you have to look within, and when you look within, then, you know, things will get better and you fix these things. And it's really nice to be able to say that. But what we need specifics. We don't need generalities. We need to know, what do I need to do? How do I do this? The first step, and I said it before, the first step is acknowledging those traits, those characteristics. It doesn't mean you're a bad person, it just means you haven't learned yet, right? Those characteristics that are separating you from the core of who you are, your God, the God that's within you. That's the first thing you need to do, is acknowledge that something exists. Because you can't fix what you don't acknowledge. All right? That's number one. Number two is, you need to find something, someone, somehow, a program, books to read. You need to find a way, once you acknowledge it, to repair it. To begin the process of working through getting rid of that layer. And know that when you get rid of that layer, another layer is going to be there, and you keep digging and digging and digging until you get to your core. That's how it's done, guys, and that's why Burroughs said it's constant effort. But it's not necessarily work. I think it becomes habitual to do this, to always check with yourself to see, am I doing this? Is this coming from a loving space of motivation or not? Okay, so it's a practice thing. It's a learning thing. But where does this teacher come from? Where does this learning come from? How do we do this? Okay, I acknowledge that whatever, you pick it. I'm a jealous person. Okay. Where does this teacher come from? When the student is ready, what happens? The teacher appears. Right? When the student is ready, the teacher appears. Now, what does that look like? That might look like an online program that catches your eye. It might look like a book that you haven't read yet. It might look like a friend who all of a sudden comes into your life that has had those experiences previously and mentors you through yours. Huh? It might look like a new spirit guide. Someone in spirit that comes to you and is ready to work with you. So it's not your job necessarily to find out how you're going to address it. Just be willing, acknowledge it, know that it exists, and be willing to address it. And when you're ready, believe me, you'll get help. That's natural law. That's the way the law works. Okay? The third thing of the how this is going to get fixed, if you will, how we're going to get to our inner core, the God being within us, is you have to commit. You got to commit to this. This is not something that you can dabble in and say, well, I'll take a little bit of a look at it and then, okay, I'm good now. Now I'm going to just go back over here. How long does it take that drop of water to eat through that rock? How long would it take that needle on that record to cut a new groove? You have to commit. If you will do this, I will guarantee you, I will promise you, and guarantee you that your life will improve. That your life will not only improve, you will go from being a survivor to a thriver. That's what Aristotle said, that the purpose of living was, for us as humans, was to find happiness. This is how you get there from here. I gave you the roadmap. And nobody can do it for you. You have to do it for yourself. I want to read you something else. I don't know who the author was. I just think it's darn good, though. Our deepest fear is not that we're inadequate. You know what fear is? False evidence appearing real. F-E-A-R. Fear. Okay? Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing so small does not serve this world, nor does it serve you. There is nothing enlightening about shrinking so other people won't feel unsure around you. I can't make myself small enough to make you feel big. You were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It is not just in some of us. It's in everyone. As we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. If that guy out there is peaceful and happy and joyous, and he's got all that, or she's got all that going on, then there's hope, isn't there? If they have it, then you can have it. You can have it, it's out there. You just got to find it. I shouldn't say it's out there, it's in here, right? As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence, just our presence, automatically liberates others. The truth, my friends, shall truly, truly set you free. God bless you.